Yes, sir. Yes, sir. About to react to some uh horror shorts party. True McDonald's horror stories animated. Let's jump into the video. I'm just gonna okay, I should be better than right? Okay. That better be working. You about to fight? You about to fight?
Working at McDonald's has ruined my life. I thought it would just be a way to save money for the future while I studied at my local college, but it turned out to be the thing that ripped my future from my grasp. It all started in the summertime. I was working the drive-through window, which is as mundane of a routine as anything else you can do at McDonald's. All the orders were passing through my hands and into car windows in one monotonous blur, just like any other day. But despite the sheer number of people that passed by me during that shift, there was one individual who stuck out. The driver of the vehicle she was in was nothing special, just her whipped boyfriend. But her, I remember her. She had this awful helmet-looking wig of ketchup red hair, which just did not go with the rest of her style whatsoever. I tried not to stare. I looked up to the screen where the orders came through to see what they got. Her boyfriend got a Big Mac meal with a large Sprite, and she got a 10-piece McNugget meal with a large Hi-C. That may not seem relevant, but I only say this because I know for a fact that I did everything within my responsibility to make sure they got what they were supposed to. I handed over the drinks first. Then I held out the bag of food. I expected her boyfriend in the driver's seat to grab it, but instead, she reached over and snatched it out of my hands, giving me this dirty, ravenous look as she did it.
I'm jumping out the window. I'm grabbing the food back. You guys have a nice day, or I'm going to reach for my pistol.
So that barely registered anyway. Have a nice day. They sped off out of the drive-thru, and I thought I'd never see them again. I was wrong. The woman with the ridiculous hair walked inside not a minute later. I saw her as I was grabbing a McFlurry cup from the front. She was standing with her hands at her hips, impatiently waiting to speak to a manager in a very evident manner. By the time I'd made the McFlurry, the manager was with her. I wasn't really paying attention, but I could see she was being nasty for no good reason. I don't know what kind of day the manager was having, but he wasn't having any of this woman's attitude. They started screaming at each other. You come into my establishment and you insult my employees. What the hell do you think you're doing in here? I ought to take you out back and rip your damn wig off, you piece of shit! Out of
Oh, nah. Nah, W manager. He's holding his ground. Where's this at, man?
the corner of my eye, I saw her spit in the manager's eye, to which he slapped her in the face.
That rightfully so. Rightfully so. Mm-hmm.
He immediately regretted throwing hands and disappeared from the counter to go hide in his office. That's when the crazy woman went berserk. She started hollering at the top of her lungs, pushing stuff off the counter and throwing random objects into the kitchen. She threw over a cup of straws, spilling them all over the floor.
What, y'all think I'm stupid?
Yeah.
Think I can't count? I got a 10-piece, not a 9-piece. Maybe I...
She came in here doing all of that because her 10-piece was one nugget off.
off one of your fingers and see how you feel about it.
She was making an awful scene. At that point, I couldn't help but look. Several of my coworkers went to the counter to try and calm her down or get her out of the restaurant, but she was inconsolable.
Why is the authorities not being contacted at this moment? This lady is not mentally stable. She is going to hurt somebody.
Pulled on one of those plexiglass barriers that hangs in front of the cash register and hurled it towards somebody. It nearly stabbed their eye out. Still, the corner of the plexiglass sliced them in the temple, spurting blood all down their shirt.
Let me see that witch that gave me my food. Come on, she needs a good beating.
I realized she was talking about me, and that's when she jumped the counter. She locked eyes with me at the window and lunged, but she was caught by a small crowd of employees who got a hold of her and threw her out the door. But she came back. Several times she came back, actually. Every time we thought she was gone, she would storm back in and throw something else at the people in the kitchen. Finally, after what felt like an eternity,
Why is she so angry? Why is she so mad? She came in multiple times after that.
the manager came out and yelled at her.
The cops are on their way! You really want to throw your life away over one chicken nugget?
At that, she disappeared. The cops showed up about an hour later, asked a few questions, and took a copy of the security footage. I thought she would eventually get fined a few grand or spend a few nights in jail, but we never got word that she'd been caught. 3 or 4 months passed, the season changed, and I pretty much forgot about the whole thing. Pretty much everyone moved on, even the cops. Then, one day, I was working the drive-thru again, and I saw her. She came back with her boyfriend and ordered the exact same thing. My heart sank to the floor when she came up to the window. I recognized her immediately. She still wore that same awful red wig, but this time she was even...
Just look at her. She like the Grinch. She's obviously up to something devious, man.
Insane looking. She stared me down with this creepy, deranged smile, like some kind of psycho would look at their next victim. But she didn't say anything. She just took her food and drove off slowly, looking at me through the window until they were out of sight. I thought about calling the cops, but I figured she would leave once she counted all 10 of her nuggets. It gave me a jolt, forcing me to remember her littler rampage back in August, but after a while I wasn't thinking about it. Several hours passed and the sun went down. Then I was done with my shift. Right before I walked out the door, I remembered that I'd seen her that day. Just as a precaution, I got out my keychain and clutched the little pink bottle of pepper spray. I'd had this thing since I was a sophomore in high school, about 6 years, so I was sure it was expired, but I figured it would be good enough. I pushed open the door and walked out with long, quick strides headed for my car. Within seconds, I heard her walking behind me, racing to catch up with me, coming up so quickly that I was sure she was about to attack. Instinctively, I turned around and sprayed her straight in the eyes. Without bothering to linger for any reason, I turned back and ran to my car. As I fumbled with my keys looking for the unlock button, I looked back to the woman with the insanely colored hair. She was still standing, but she was staggering. I saw her wipe her eyes vigorously and spit on the ground. Then she looked straight at me. Her eyes were bloodshot, all the skin around them swollen and red and covered in thick tears. She bared her teeth like a rabid animal, drooling. She screamed horridly, then charged at me unhindered. I pulled open the car door and jumped inside, locking it behind me. I thought I was safe, but before I could even calm my nerves enough to start my car, I saw a rock bashing into the window, smashing it like a wine glass.
Music is one of the best ways to express your feelings.
No. They grabbed me by the hair and yanked me through the door, all over the shards of glass and dropping me on the pavement while still grasping at my scalp. She struck me in the face repeatedly, using her nails like claws, cutting my face and eyes, splitting my lip and scarring my cheeks.
This will teach you to disrespect me, you little punk. You gon' remember me.
I don't know how long I was taking that for. I didn't fight back. I just clutched my car keys so she wouldn't steal it. Eventually, I heard my manager come out and start yelling.
Oh my
That's when the
God.
crazy woman
Now
dropped
you
me
getting
to the ground and ran off, disappearing once again.
Got you by the
And
hair.
what's worse, the police still haven't found her. They don't care enough about me to go looking, I
Now your
guess.
face is
But she
permanently
ruined my
deranged.
life. I quit my job after that day, and I moved back into my parents' house. I even missed my college graduation because my face was so messed up. I'm too scared to go outside. I'm just worried that I'm going to run into her, and she'll recognize me all over again.
The customer begins to argue with a worker over her order. There is no audio, but witnesses told police that the customer became verbally abusive toward the staff. That's when the situation turned violent. The customer tried to get behind the counter and had to be pushed back out the door by other workers. When she couldn't get behind the counter, she started throwing things. For the next 4 minutes, the woman with the red hair threw everything she could get her hands on over the counter. Wet floor signs, a trash can, plastic order numbers, another wet floor sign. Before leaving the restaurant, she grabs a big promotional sign and heaves it over the counter. Then she finally walks out.
That's crazy. That's really crazy. I like that one. All right, now we're going to the second story. And is that my guy Terrence? Oh no, it's not Terrence Clark though. It's all right though. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Let's get into it. Let's get into this.
Oh my!
Around the early 2000s, there was a high clown epidemic, where multiple reports of people being chased by clowns was at an all-time high. Most were classified as pranks, but regardless of their intentions, it was downright terrifying. The next story was inspired by some footage of a Ronald McDonald terrorizing someone at McDonald's. Here's what it looked like.
Oh my!
Have you ever wondered why they say, "Would you like fries with that?" After every meal you purchase, the offer seemingly comes up despite you already order. I know why, and I'll tell you, but I need to give a disclaimer that the story isn't for the faint-hearted. This allegedly happened to a friend of mine. We'll call him John, and we'll call his roommate Brad. The fall semester was in full effect, and the pair had both studied at the same campus nearby their student housing. It was alleged that John moved in with Brad as he was originally from out of town and needed a place to stay for the following curriculum. Brad was known to not be the most pleasant individual to study around, due to his constant guitar rehearsals for his rock
Okay,
band.
Brad?
This would cause John to always opt to study at a nearby McDonald's. It was usually the go-to place for students, as this particular franchise was a 24-hour establishment. The McDonald's was never packed, at least not during the night shifts, so finding a place to sit wasn't so bad. You would occasionally find a loiterer or two, and were guaranteed to find this one female bookworm who would literally show up every night. John would always purchase a meal before study, giving him a plausible excuse to dine without feeling like he was loitering. "Hello, sir. Welcome to McDonald's. How may I take your order?" "Just a Big Mac and a small Coke, please." "All right, sir. And would you like fries with that?" No thank you." "Are you sure, sir? It's almost 3 a.m. "Okay, so what?" "All right, sir. That'll be $8.19 after taxes. And how will you be paying?" Card, ma'am." John taps his card on the machine and awaits his food as the odd behavior from the cashier left him feeling uneasy. Nonetheless, John grabs his tray of food and sits down to begin his long chore of studying. About 10 minutes before 3 a.m., the female bookworm slides by John's table with a frantic look on her face and says,
"It's almost time. You should probably pick up your fries now."
"What the hell are you talking about, lady?"
Dude, hurry up. We don't have much time.
The female proceeds to head towards the front counter while John sat there dumbfounded. John then gets up from his seat and follows the girl's lead by ordering a large fry after her. As the pair head to their respective tables with their fries, John approaches the female and begins to interrogate her by saying, "I got the fries, now what?"
I recommend just sitting down with your fries. It's literally going to be 3 a.m. any second now.
"What the hell are you talking about, lady?"
You don't know about him? The clown?
"Who?"
Duh, Ronald McDonald. Haven't you gotten the hint why they always ask if you want fries with that?
What is Ronald McDeany gonna do to me, man? What is she gonna do? I don't want your large fries, you stupid clown.
"Oh, why?"
I recommend you always have fries on hand, or else he'll turn you into a McFlurry.
What does that mean?
And what do we have on today's menu? Young man, such a fine couple you are. Can we share some delectable fries? Pretty please?
Take them, bro.
Okay.
Sure, sir.
Good. I'll catch you all next time. And make sure to have fries with your Big Macs and Happy Meals.
And that's when he departed the building. The more John studied at the McDonald's, the more he slowly realized that this was an everyday thing. Well, a 3 a.m. thing to be exact.
Why does he keep going back to the same McDonald's, bro? Just relocate. You can obviously tell that Ronald McDeasley, he's not human anymore. Skedaddle, bro. Go to the Burger King or Chipotle, dog. This is so stupid.
The so-called Ronald McDonald would torment the customers and employees for fries, as if they were in debt to him for something. Nobody really bothered to do a damn thing about it and just went along with the whole facade. John, on the other hand, wasn't so pleased with the idea of being taxed to sit at McDonald's in exchange for his fries. But there was nothing he could really do about it. John had spread the word about the clown, but no one really believed him.
Well, I got something for you to do. Skedaddle. There's like 1,000 different restaurants better than McDonald's.
Especially
there still.
Loud roommate Brad. One night, John decided to bring Brad to the McDonald's and prove that what he was saying was in fact legit. Brad didn't believe him and scoffed at the whole ordeal, as if the clown was some fake phony urban legend or some weirdo hustling food from regular customers. The time was 10 minutes shy before 3, and that's when everyone excluding Brad went to the front counter to pick up an order of fries. What makes the story more disturbing was how Brad carried himself. He had the same stubborn attitude and remained seated at the table despite John's multiple warnings. When 3 a.m. came around, the clown entered the McDonald's and immediately approached the bookworm's table first.
Eve to me is basically freedom.
Ads, man!
This batch was fresh off the fryer.
The clown then approaches John and Brad's table as they looked at the clown with their jaws hanging to the ground.
Ooh, look what we have here.
That's when John saw Brad holding a handful of fries with his bare hands, and John's fry container completely empty without an ounce of potato in it.
I recommend you always have fries on hand, or else he'll turn you into a McFlurry.
No. Ah!
Oh, John, bro. This guy, Brad, slimed him out. Ah, come on. Alright, this is the last one. And this one is narrated by my favorite guy, Terrence Nicholson. Just play the video, man.
I have been in television for 24 years. And I have very seldom been at a loss for words. But I don't even know what to ask you first.
When I was a kid, I didn't have much money. My mom raised me by herself while she worked 2 jobs, so I spent a lot of time alone in our apartment. I had to fend for myself as far as making food and finding things to do. For food, I frequented the closest and cheapest thing there was, the McDonald's around the corner. It was easy, and I only needed a handful of quarters to get a meal, which was all I had. As for my entertainment, one thing I did have was my mom's old desktop computer with a CRT monitor. It was already old by those days' standards, and this was before we had smartphones. Despite that, to me, access to the internet was an absolute luxury. The big thing on the internet back then was chat rooms. Stuff like Facebook and Instagram didn't exist yet, so just about the only way to talk to people besides email was a chat room. There wasn't much to it, just some basic information like their name and age. And most of the time the chat rooms were community-based, so you'd be talking to people that lived somewhere in your city. I thought it was a pretty neat way to potentially meet people in the real world, though it did end up having some problems. There was one guy I remember meeting very clearly. He was really cool to talk to online. His name in the chat room was John, and he was around my age. We traded messages almost every day for a few weeks, and we even played the original Counter-Strike together. Then one day he said he wanted to meet up and get something to eat.
I feel like personally, John is not his age. John is gonna be a 45-year-old man that likes to tickle kids in the butt.
I had nothing better to do, as usual, so I agreed. But I had to ask if he lived close by. I didn't have a car or a bike, and I couldn't really afford to take the bus. I was a slight bit cautious, so I didn't tell him my home address. I just asked if he could meet me at the McDonald's by the big intersection near my place. He said that was no problem, so we agreed to meet there at 6 o'clock that evening. I have to admit I was pretty excited. I never met any of the people I talked to on the internet before. And to be honest, I didn't really have many friends, even at school. I had high hopes to hang out with this guy more regularly, even before I'd seen him for the first time. I raided my mom's coin jar for some quarters, just enough to get a Happy Meal as usual. Then I walked out into the street around 5 minutes before we were set to meet. I got to the McDonald's at 6, but didn't see him. I kept an eye out for the green jacket John said he'd be wearing as I took a seat in the dining room. The McDonald's employees recognized me as I was there almost every day. I decided to wait for John to get there before I ordered, knowing I wouldn't be bothered by the workers. After a few minutes, I started to get a little anxious. I didn't have a cell phone as they weren't very common back then. I was just sitting there in silence, looking around the dining room. That's when I saw a strange-looking man wearing a trench coat standing by the window, staring at me. The moment I made eye contact with him, he began shuffling towards me, until he was standing right next to my table. The table was about waist height on him, and he held a Happy Meal box right over the edge.
You look hungry, little boy. Would you like something from my Happy Meal?
No, I'm good, thanks. I'm just waiting for someone.
Oh, are you waiting for John? He's my son.
Without asking, the man sat down right next to me in the booth.
I know exactly what's about to happen, my guy. This is not... John is not bro's son. This is John all along, and he's about to touch you in your butt in a very inappropriately. Listen, hit him with the Happy Meal, hit a 360 cartwheel over the table, and skedaddle, my boy.
When there was a perfectly good seat right across from me, he shifted the Happy Meal box and set it in his lap, even though the table was right there. He leaned in and mumbled in my ear, like he was about to say some kind of secret.
He called me and said he was about to ride his bike to meet somebody here. I know this isn't the greatest part of town, so I thought I should drive over to make sure everything was safe. But I figured he'd be here by now. Oh, I hope he's okay. But while we're waiting, you should eat something. I bought this Happy Meal for the two of you. Come on, don't be shy.
I really didn't know how to feel about the guy. I was pretty young at the time now that I think about it. I guess I didn't really... But on the other hand, his story made sense to me. I mean, how else would he have known the name of the person I was waiting to meet? What made me give him the benefit of the doubt, though, was the growling in my stomach. I knew I could have paid for my own meal, but I didn't think there was anything wrong with getting a little free food. Okay, sure. Thank you, sir.
No! 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 He's about to reach in the box and grab straight wiener. Oh!
Yeah, that's it. Just reach in there and grab something at random. Be fair to John. He opened up the box as it was still in his lap, but wouldn't let me look inside. Desperate for some food, I reached in. But as far as I could tell, there wasn't any food at all in there. I grabbed onto the only thing that was in there, but it definitely wasn't anything that was supposed to be in a Happy Meal. It felt weird, almost